upon request after the council meeting. For real-time transcription, visit your Apple App Store or Google Play Store and download services such as Live Transcribe or Live Caption. The public is encouraged to join the meeting either online or by phone at the number printed on the agenda, which can be found on the city's website at www.diamondbarca.gov or in person at the main auditorium, South Coast Air Quality Management District. We have also allowed public comments to be submitted in advance to the city clerk. If any were received, they will be noted for the record when we get to the public comment period. This meeting is being recorded, and by participating, you are giving permission to be televised. This meeting will be rebroadcast every Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. and alternate Tuesdays at 8 p.m. and archived for viewing on the city's website, again at www.diamondbarca.gov. At this point, I'd like to ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Then please remain standing for the invocation by Associate Pastor Abe Castle from Landmark Church. Please stand. With the right hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we humbly ask for wisdom tonight. May our hearts be in tune with the things that your heart is in tune with. Bless those who are leading, guide them, give the mayor, city leaders, staff, and city council wisdom and direction that they may deal with all of these challenges properly. Help us all to distinguish between right and wrong and bring order, stability, and prosperity to our community. Bless our troops, our police department, our fire department, and all those who are out there protecting us. We pray that all the friction in the Middle East to come to a peaceful ending. Thank you so much for this country. Thank you for all of our freedoms that we have here. May our citizens be united, and may Diamond Bar just stand out and set a great example for others. We are truly thankful. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please be seated. Thank you. City Clerk, can you please take the call? Call the roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lowe?
I'm here.
Councilmember Tang?
Here.
Councilmember Tai?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Liu?
Here.
Mayor Chow?
I'm here. Thank you. We'll now move on to approval of agenda. City Manager Fox, are there any changes to the agenda as presented?
There are no changes to the agenda this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. The agenda is hereby approved. We'll now move on to item 1, special presentation, certificates, and proclamation. And we're very pleased today to have the American Hindu Foundation with us, and we're happy to proclaim November 2023 as Hindu Heritage Month. And I understand that we have the American Hindu Foundation here with us. We can invite you to come up. We'll have you say a few words, and we'll take a photo with you, and we'll go ahead and present their proclamation to you. Would that be okay? All right, if you can join us down here.
No, wait. One guy sit down for every woman that comes over.
How you doing? How you doing? So good to see you.
Good, good,
Welcome,
Andrew.
welcome.
Good, Andrew.
Good. Thank you so much.
You want to have the mic? Oh my God. Have the mayor have the
No,
mic.
we'll have you stand in the middle. We'll have you, no, right here. You're gonna say a few words.
Okay,
You're gonna say the word?
yeah.
Thanks for being here.
We'll wait for them.
Middle.
Find a spot, find a spot.
She's my staff.
Kanta andar aaja. Kanta, come this side. Kanta, all the consonant. This side. You know.
It could be mixed up, no problem. Yeah. Stay with Andrew.
So introduce yourself and just say a few words about
Yeah.
the Wali and, yeah.
Hey, Marcia, could you take the picture for him?
So he can be in.
Oh, she'll take one for us, yeah.
She will take the picture.
Yeah, then you can be in the photo too, yeah.
Right after the picture, I will speak.
Okay, we'll save.
Thank you.
One more, one more, one more.
One more.
One more, one more, one more.
Diamond Bar people, just the residents of Diamond Bar, we'll all come out except for Diamond Bar.
Diamond Bar resident.
All Diamond Bar residents?
Yes, just the Diamond Bar
Well,
residents.
this council.
We are all Diamond Bar residents. We are all-
Everyone here.
Everybody else.
No, Dr. Manoj.
It's okay, we welcome everybody. Everyone's welcome.
शलभ आ जाओ आप ही आ जाओ
Everyone's welcome, everyone's welcome.
Come. Good evening, everyone. My name is Surender Mehta, and I'm a resident of Diamond Bar from 1988. Today, we are pleased to receive a proclamation from the city of Diamond Bar, and Honorable Mayor and Honorable Council members. We are here to let you know that this is one of the cities, one of the best cities, best managed cities. I have seen this city just before it was got its cityhood. And every one of us is so pleased to say that. And also, this particular proclamation gives me a lot of pleasure, gives us a lot of pleasure that in Diamond Bar, there's a lot of the Hindu community. And us, as Hindu community members, we have contributed to Diamond Bar. We are very pleased to what we do. This is our home, this is our workplace, and we are extremely, extremely excited to live in this city. And as far as the cultural goes, the culture of India and the culture of America goes, as many of you would know, that America and India is getting closer and closer every day. From the economic point of view, from the industrial point of view, and also from the cultural point of view, and also a lot of the security and other things that are happening in this world. So we are so delighted to be here and receive this proclamation from the city of Diamond Bar. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, thank you. And it is our honor. Would any of my council members like to say a few words as well? Ruth?
Thank you, Mayor, and I just want to thank everyone here who took time from their family time and dinner time and homework time to come and join us and share, and that's kind of why it's so important that, I'm so glad that you did. It's our pleasure to proclaim Hindu this month because you are here to share what your culture, your perspective and your culture life, and with not just your own people, but for the greater community. And I know that you put on a lot of cultural events and you get young people, and anybody's welcome to learn about it and just experience the warmth and the friendship and the family and the tradition. So we really are blessed to have that additional enrichment into our community. So thank you so much for your involvement.
Well said. Well, here's the proclamation, and thank you again for being here. Would you like to say a few words as well?
No, I just,
Oh, okay.
they told me to receive it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I presented to the wrong person. Well, here you go. On behalf of the city council, I'd like to present you the proclamation. Okay, hold on.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. New Year, 31st. 31st. The last 14 years. New Year. American New Year. Not Indian New Year. This was Indian New Year. Thank you.
Every year we take the kids to go to the
Good to see you too. I don't know how you
Thank you again for being here. It was our honor to have you. All right, we'll move on to item 2, City Manager Reports and Recommendation. We'll start with a Community Opinion Survey. Mr. Fox.
I'd like to introduce Ryan McLean, our Assistant City Manager, to start off the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm pleased this evening to introduce the results of the city's first ever Community Opinion Survey. This is an item that's consistent with the City Council's strategic plan goal of an open, engaged, and responsive government. The survey that was conducted is a statistically valid random sample survey that collected the input of more than 600 local residents. And these residents provided feedback on a number of issues, including quality of life, the city's service performance, effectiveness of the city's engagement efforts, and community safety, among many other items. The results, which will be shared in detail by Dr. Timothy McLarney of True North Research, offer a very interesting and compelling look at what the city does well, where it can improve, and the issues that matter to the members of our community right now. All of this is helpful to the council and staff as we strive for constant improvements to our services and programs. And so with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. McLarney to the podium to present some background on the survey, its methodology, and the results.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Dr. Tim McLarney, President of True North Research. We are a firm that for more than 20 years has specialized in working with cities throughout California as well as other types of public agencies and using surveys to help them develop a statistically reliable understanding of the communities and the customers that they serve. To date, my business partner and I, working as a two-person team, have designed and conducted over 1,200 research studies for public agencies, and about 400 of those studies are community opinion surveys, like what we're going to be talking about tonight for California cities. And so I mention that experience because as I go through tonight's presentation, or perhaps in sort of response to council questions, I want you to have a sense for the experience base from which I'd be speaking if I make comments like how the results in Diamond Bar might compare to what we see in other cities typically. And so I also welcome questions from council as I go, or at the end, whichever is your preference, Mayor. Okay, so before we talk about the results, it's helpful to take a moment to review the methodology of the study, or how we went about conducting this study. You know, the key to having a statistically reliable survey is making sure you have a random sample. We use what's called stratified random sampling for adult residents within the city, which means that we weren't just choosing adults at random. We wanted to actually stratify by sub-geographies to make sure that we had the proper dispersion throughout the city. And then we also watched the demographics of our sample as the data collection progressed to make sure that they're closely aligned with what the census tells us the demographics of the community are on key factors. Once we'd selected our sample, we reached out using 3 different recruiting methods: email, text, and telephone calls. All of the hyperlinks that we had built into our invitations were PIN protected, and what that allows us to do is ensure that only individuals who we had randomly sampled and invited to take the survey could access the site, and they could take that survey one time only. They had the choice of participating either by telephone or online, whichever was their preference. They had the choice of participating in English, Chinese, or Korean, whichever is their preference. And we had set a goal at the outset of the survey to complete 500 interviews, which would more than achieve the sample size you need to have to meet the academic standard for statistical reliability. We actually walked back in the door with 640 interviews. We had a better response to the survey than I had anticipated in terms of productivity, and so those extra interviews are free to the city, no extra charge. But one of the benefits of that is that it reduces our overall margin of error to about plus or minus 3.8%. So what that means is, as we walk through tonight's results, we can be 95% confident that the results are within 3.8% of what we would have found had we spoken with all of your adult residents. Okay, so on to the survey results. This first slide shows the results of really the opening question of the survey, where we want residents to tell us what their perceptions are of the city on each of the dimensions you see there on the left side of that slide. So how would they rate the overall quality of life in Diamond Bar? How would they rate Diamond Bar as a place to raise a family, as a place to retire, et cetera? And on this scale of excellent, good, fair, poor, very poor. And what's interesting is you have some mixed results here. Obviously, as an overall quality of life in the community, you have very high results. 86% rated that as excellent or good. As a place to raise a family, similarly, 86% rated as excellent or good. As a place to retire, it notches down a bit at 63%. That's actually still a really good number from a California city perspective. Everybody knows California is an expensive place to live. And so that number is actually a little higher than we normally see. As a place to recreate, you get about 47% who say it's excellent or good. But then the two bottom ones there, as a place to work and as a place to shop and dine, you're seeing much softer results. And we're going to see that shop and dine item pop up a couple more times in the survey. So following that warm-up question, we also asked individuals if the city government could change one thing to make Diamond Bar a better place to live now and in the future, what change would you like to see? This question was asked in an open-ended manner, meaning we didn't provide them the list you see on this screen and tell them to pick one. They got to tell us in their own words what they'd like to improve about the city. And then we went back and reviewed those verbatim responses and grouped them into the categories you see here. As I mentioned, we saw on that last slide that the shopping and dining opportunities was an area where folks saw some room for improvement. We're seeing that again here. Top of the list, the number one response was 27% improving shopping and dining opportunities. What's interesting is about 20% say either not sure, can't think of anything specific, or no changes are needed, everything is fine. So 1 out of 5 residents, basically, when you hand them a soapbox and say, step up on that soapbox and tell us what we as a city can do to improve the community, they either shrug their shoulders or say specifically that no improvements are needed. So that's, in a lot of ways, a great response. Other things that were mentioned, though, included providing more recreation and community events at about 8% and reducing traffic congestion at about 8%. So this next slide is in some ways the most important slide we'll talk about here tonight, and it's the answers to the question, generally speaking, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the job the city of Diamond Bar is doing to provide city services? Because we're asking them to speak about the city's performance overall, we're not asking them about specific services at this point like streets and roads or police. It can be considered an overall performance rating for the city. And what you see here is you have 76% of the respondents we spoke with say that they're satisfied with the city's performance overall. You've got about 17% who said they were dissatisfied and about 8% who were unsure. This is a good solid score. I do this for a lot of cities around the state. I've seen it, a really, really high number today is a low 90s. Most of the time a high number would be high 80s. And you'll see this number down into the 40s, depending on what community you're surveying in. So 76% is a really good, solid number, especially since you have yet to do one of these types of studies. We tend to find that cities that embark on this process and they do the survey, they understand kind of what areas for improvement they have with the community, and then they sort of follow through with that. 2 years later, we tend to see that their numbers have room to sort of progress. So good, solid starting point, though. So that last slide was about overall performance of the city. In this slide, we dive in now to all the specific service areas you see on the left side of the slide, and we ask essentially the same question. Overall, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the city's performance in this area? And you can see that for the majority of the services we tested there, you had at least 75% of those respondents who had an opinion saying that they were satisfied with the city's performance. At the top of the list, providing fire protection, emergency medical services, 91% satisfied. Maintaining parks and rec areas, 91% satisfied. Keeping public buildings and facilities clean and attractive, similarly high results. When you get down to the bottom, there's a couple that stand out at the bottom as having lower levels of satisfaction. That's managing traffic congestion in the city and addressing homelessness. I can tell you again, having done this type of research for a lot of cities around the state, and particularly in Southern California, those are the items that tend to gravitate to the bottom of the list. It's also noteworthy, though, that these are also the items that, when you think about all the other services we're testing here, these are the two that you probably have the least amount of control over as a city, right? There's only so much you can do with respect to traffic congestion, all right? And there's only so much you can do with respect to homelessness. Okay. Transitioning from that section, we started to dig deeper in a couple of areas. One was perceived safety of the city, and so we asked folks to tell us how safe is Diamond Bar as a place to live. Would you say it's very safe, somewhat unsafe, or very unsafe? And you can see here that about 9 out of 10 respondents rated the city as a safe place to live. Once we had that overall rating, we also asked them to the same basic question, but in more specific scenarios. So how safe do they feel when walking in their neighborhood during the day, for example, which was at the top there. You had 95% of folks say they feel safe in that scenario. Walking commercial areas of the city during the day, 91%. Normally, I will tell you, as you get into the after dark scenarios in most cities, your satisfaction rating, I mean, your safety ratings drop quite a bit. Here they drop, but not by that much, right? Even at the bottom ones, walking in your neighborhood after dark, right? We have about 3/4 of respondents saying they still feel safe in that scenario, and about 70% say they still feel safe walking commercial and shopping areas of the city after dark. So those are, comparatively speaking, good safety ratings. So we were perhaps anticipating that the shopping and dining issue might be something that residents care a lot about and might perceive that there's some opportunities for improvement there. And so we had a specific question in the survey where we said, thinking of the retail stores and restaurants that your household visits outside of the city of Diamond Bar, are there any that you would like to have available in Diamond Bar? 75% of folks said yes to that question, right? So that is measuring that same sort of high level of demand for additional shopping and dining opportunities in the city. When we asked them in an open-ended manner to describe the 1 or 2 restaurants that they'd most like to have located in Diamond Bar, we went back after all those answers, and these were open-ended. They could tell us whatever they wanted, but we grouped them into sort of like categories. So at the very top, you have about 1/3 who were just seeking sort of more variety in the types of cuisine. So they wanted either more Greek or more Mexican or Italian or Asian restaurants. Family chain restaurants like the Cheesecake Factory and Olive Garden, number 2 response at about 25%. And about 18% weren't sure, no specific names that came to mind, but they were just interested in more dining opportunities in the city. Same type of question applied this time to 1 or 2 retail stores that they currently visit outside the city that they'd like to have located in Diamond Bar. Here at the top, about 26% said not sure. What this tells us a little bit is when they were answering that basic question earlier about whether they wanted additional shopping and dining opportunities, there was probably more emphasis on the dining part, less emphasis on the shopping part, because about 26% didn't have an answer when we asked about the stores. The number 2, though, I always say this, if your community doesn't have at least one Trader Joe's, right, or maybe 2, Trader Joe's always comes atop this list. And so number 2 is specialty organic food stores like Whole Foods Market, Trader Joe's at 25%.
Can I ask you a question regarding that?
Yeah.
Is your survey offering those among others, or this is what the community is saying?
So the community is giving us specific names. Usually, sometimes they'll say like Mexican food as opposed to the name of a Mexican food restaurant, but there'll be that. What we have done is gone back and looked at those, and to try and make this list manageable, we group them into categories. So when, in the parentheses are the best examples of the category. So in specialty organic foods, for example, that's Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, right? There might be mentions of Sprouts, right? It's kind of like categories there.
Thank you.
So the city of Diamond Bar, I'm assuming like most cities, has a limited budget, and you probably have what seems like an unlimited list of demands on that budget, in which case you have to set priorities, right? And so we took the opportunity in the survey to reach out to residents and say, of these various categories you see here on this list, should they be a high priority, a medium priority, or a low priority for future city spending, or should they not be a priority? And to keep this list from having everything be a high priority, we introduce a sense of competition into the question. We say, please keep in mind that not everything can be a high priority. So we're sort of forcing them to prioritize. And you can see at the top of the list, improving the maintenance of local streets was the top priority. Among the items we tested there, you had 82% indicate that that was either a high or medium priority. Addressing homelessness, 78%, also a high priority. And then working with property owners to create a pedestrian-oriented and walkable Diamond Bar Town Center. That's interesting. Normally, when we look at sort of those types of specific plans or specific improvements to local areas within a community, they don't test as high up on the list as this one does here on yours. And so, again, it doesn't mean, though, at the bottom of the list that your community doesn't care about things like providing special events and community festivals or facilitating the development of housing for lower or middle-income families. What it says, though, is that when push comes to shove, right, when we have a limited budget and we're forced to prioritize, this is how they would rank those items. So we also asked, most of the questions in the survey are very service-oriented, like how are we doing in terms of streets and roads, how are we doing in terms of police, et cetera. We also took an opportunity, though, to kind of ask them how they view Diamond Bar as a government agency, right? And so for each of the statements you see at the bottom of each of those columns, we simply asked them to tell us, to the extent they agreed or disagreed with the statement. And this is among those who had an opinion one way or the other. And what's striking to me is that at least 2/3 of respondents for every single statement we tested agreed with the statement, with the highest being 85% agreeing with "I trust the city of Diamond Bar," followed by "the city treats all residents the same." At 80%, "the city manages its finances well," on down. So these are really good numbers. I mean, when you think about trust of government agencies, we're all taught as good Americans not to trust government, right? That's sort of our founding ethos. And when you ask people about their level of trust, say, of the state government or your level of trust of Congress, you get very low numbers, right? When you ask folks about whether they trust the city of Diamond Bar, we have 85% of those with opinions saying they trust. So those are really good numbers. We also asked some questions about staff interaction. So a little over 1/4 of the respondents we spoke with, 27%, had interactions with city staff during the past year. And for those individuals, we asked them to rate staff in terms of their professionalism, their accessibility, and their helpfulness. And as you can see, staff got high marks across the board on those dimensions. And then we get to communication. And communication is this area where, again, I've been doing this for 20 years, worked with a lot of cities. And one of the common patterns that we've seen over the last 10 years is that satisfaction with city resident communication has gone down and down and down over time. There's a couple of sort of theories about why this may be. I think, number one, it's just a lot harder to communicate with residents these days than it used to be. It used to be that if you put out a quarterly newsletter and that plus, everyone read the same newspapers. Remember, there used to be newspapers, and everybody, watched the same TV stations. That you could be in a few channels and get to a lot of people. Today, things are, very different. Obviously, if you polled everyone in the room, I'll bet none of us actually use the exact same information sources for news and events locally, and so that's just made the challenge of reaching residents harder. I also think that people's expectations for the immediacy of information have gone way up, right? We all have this magical device in our pocket that if we want to know something, it takes us 5 seconds to figure it out. And so those two things in combination for a lot of communities have sort of forced their satisfaction numbers down with communication. I mentioned that as a backdrop because 78% satisfied with communication is a solid number. It is a good number. So you're doing well in terms of sort of keeping up with what is a moving target in reaching residents. And to help you with that, we also use the survey to kind of get a handle on, in the current environment, what types of communication methods residents think are most effective or would be most effective for the city to communicate with them. Top of the list there, you see electronic newsletters and email, followed by the city's website. Number 3 there is direct mail, right? So you still have a certain percentage of folks who will gravitate towards direct mail as the best result. One of the other things that sort of changed over time is there used to be a really sort of pronounced digital divide based on age, right? That the digital sources here would be popular among your younger residents, whereas the direct mail was really the preference of your older residents in most communities. That has changed over time. We've just seen that digital divide shrink. I use my dad as an example. He's 80 years old. He uses text and email. He doesn't know the difference between the two, but he uses them both. And when he's at my house, he has his phone out and he's online. He's looking at Facebook. And he's got his volume up at 11 and he's flipping through fast. And I was like, this is a guy who couldn't even program a VCR back in the day, right? And he somehow managed to take his phone and learn a lot from it. And so if my dad's doing it, everybody's doing it. So key conclusions, wrap-up slide. in a lot of ways, you can look at these community surveys as sort of a report card on the city's performance. And as a report card goes, this is a very good report card, right? We saw that residents have positive views of Diamond Bar as a community to live in terms of the overall quality of life. They had positive views of the city's performance in providing municipal services overall, as well as in particularly high satisfaction in the areas you see there in that third bullet, in fire protection and maintenance of parks and city facilities, providing online access to information, customer service provided by staff, and city resident communication. So, I can tell you this, that when you get a good report card like this, it's earned, it is not given. And what I mean by that is if you as a city were not performing well in certain areas, and you do a survey like this, and you reach out to the community and you ask how we're doing, residents are more than happy to tell you exactly what they think your performance is like. So when you get positive numbers like this, you should be proud of them. It indicates you're doing a lot of things well. Like any sort of customer satisfaction survey, though, it should be a little bit not just about where are we today, but also where are we going? Where can we improve in the future? And there are some opportunity areas that pop out from the survey in that respect. That first bullet, though, is the one I want to emphasize initially, and that is the recommendation to stay the course. And what I mean by that is you've got really good numbers overall. So if you do nothing else over the next couple of years, just continue to do what you're doing, because obviously residents have a high opinion of your performance overall. That said, there are some areas that we saw some interest in improvements, and so one of those was improving shopping and dining opportunities, particularly the dining opportunities, addressing homelessness, managing traffic congestion, street maintenance, and managing growth and development. So those were the areas that sort of had it isn't that residents were dissatisfied with the city's performance in these areas necessarily, it's just more that when you compare it to all the other things that we tested in the survey, these are the areas that sort of popped up as having the best opportunities for improvement. And so with that, I end my presentation, and I welcome questions from council if there are any.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. I think it's your chart 14, and it says Figure 8, perceived safety of city. And what I heard you say was that 9 out of 10 thought it was very unsafe.
Safe,
9 out of 10 felt that way, that it's safe.
that it is.
Okay, because I'm looking at somewhat unsafe and very unsafe, and that came in at 10%. I thought maybe you meant 10% wasn't safe, but you
I'm taking the other side
very
of that.
good.
yeah.
Okay. You also said that they had the choice of doing it by telephone or online. Is there any out of the 640 folks that participated, any duplication because there were two options?
No, one of the neat things about our system is the left hand always knows what the right hand's doing. So, for example, if I send an email to a respondent and they don't click and take the survey, but I later reach out to them by text and they click that link and come in and take the survey, they can't go back to their email invitation and take it because they're linked. We know the PIN number for that. Same thing with a telephone.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. What percentage of the residents were surveyed?
What percentage of the residents were surveyed? Let me have to get your number here. It's going to be a very small number, as it is for all surveys. We have, hold on one second. So on your adult resident population, you have 44,123 adult residents. We have 640 completed interviews, so you're talking about a very small percentage of the total population, but that's one of the beautiful things about inferential statistics. It's not how many people you talk to, it's how you choose the people you talk to that allows you to extrapolate based on, in this case, 640 interviews and know with a certain margin of error of what the total population is thinking.
Okay.
And that's why I was saying we have a margin of error of about 3.8%.
Sure. So the language available was English, Chinese, and Korean. How were these chosen, such as Spanish is not on there?
So what we do is we look at rates of linguistic isolation within the community. That is, what percentage of your population are Spanish speakers, for example, but don't speak English well, right? So what's that group of people who are linguistically isolated? When you looked at that, there's always a little decision that has to happen from a methodological perspective as well as cost basis that says, okay, the top 2 languages within the community where you have a significant percentage that are linguistically isolated are Chinese and it was Korean, right? Yep. And so we translated into those languages. When we looked at Spanish, we just didn't see that there was a need. You're going to get the same answer with or without a Spanish translation because it's a relatively small percentage of your community. And to give you a sense of like this, for example, City of Pico Rivera is one of our clients. They're like 90+% Hispanic, but they're only about 17% that are linguistically isolated Spanish speakers. So there's a lot of Spanish speakers out there that are bilingual.
Okay. So one more question. On this, there's one slide that says, in terms of desire and preference, improve shopping, restaurant at 26.6, not sure at 13, and recreation activities was above reduced traffic congestion, which is 8%. And there was also another slide that managed of traffic congestion that was not satisfied, that's at 22%. This seems to be quite a big, in terms of desire, what the residents want, and then what they're not happy with. Is that, I'm a little confused on that.
So it's important to keep in mind those 2 questions. The first one that you referenced, which is slide 4 on the presentation, that is the answers to a question where we asked them if the city could change one thing, right, to make Diamond Bar a better place to live, what change would you like to see? And it was open-ended. So it's picking up top of mind, right? Like what comes to their mind as the one thing that they would like to change. And it could, but then when you get to traffic congestion a little later, so on the one thing that comes to their mind, traffic congestion is a smaller percentage, right? It's only about 8% mention it. However, when we come back later on slide 6 and we say, all right, I want to ask you how you feel about the city's performance in each one of these areas. When we get to traffic congestion, even though it's not the number 1 for many respondents, they nevertheless go, right? A lot of them are saying they're not as satisfied with traffic congestion. So that's how you can understand why it isn't mentioned much on one slide, but then it becomes one of the top 2 issues in terms of opportunities for improvement on another slide.
So what do you make of that? Because in what we hear out there, public safety is number 1 priority. There's economic development, quality of life, and traffic congestion is up there as well. Traffic issues. How does that, looking at this list, traffic is quite down there. And it's something that the resident want desire. Is that the difference between desire or something that is critical, something that needs to be fixed?
I think we're just in a time where and again, I've been doing this for 20 years, so there was a period of time when traffic congestion, when you asked this question, traffic congestion would be your number 1. We're just now, I think, in a period of time where some other things have entered into public consciousness and sort of sucking the air out of the room. There's more competition to be number 1 issue, right? Homelessness, for example. Before 2016, when you asked that question, homelessness would get like maybe 2% in most communities. And in a lot of communities, that's the number 1. Right, at the very top of the list. So you're fortunate that yours is improving shopping and dining opportunities, right? Because in a lot of communities, it's not that, it's the other. And so I think traffic congestion, although if you ask people about it, it took me 3 hours to get here tonight from North San Diego County. It was not a good night to be on the roads and the freeways. So if you ask me, it's a problem. But is it my number 1 problem? No, because there's these other things that I care a little more about.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I thought that was really good. You seem to kind of reference, my question goes to the information that you gather about the individual that's giving you the data. You seem to, for example, in one of the questions, ask them, did you have an interaction with the city staff and therefore to rate them? To what extent did your questions inquire about a particular individual characteristics?
You mean like demographics?
Correct.
Correct.
I know that you do, age and you have residents and that sort of thing. Was it beyond that?
Yeah, so we asked about age, gender, presence of children in the home, because sometimes you see some pretty stark differences in how people answer questions, whether or not they have children at home. We also asked whether there was a senior in the home, right? To get the same thing there, that households with seniors tend to behave a little differently than households without. We asked about home ownership, or do they rent or own their residence in Diamond Bar? We asked about employment status, and we asked about ethnicity, and then we have the survey language flag because when they came in, the option of choosing what language they wanted to participate in. So we have all those demographics.
And when you pulled out that, did you separately pull out that data and compare that to whether or not they stratified mirroring our demographics?
Exactly. I mean, that's the reason, the main reason we collect. There's two reasons for collecting that information. One is because we like to see how the results to questions break down by different characteristics, right? So by home ownership and by ethnicity and by employment status, for example. And then the other is because we want to make sure our sample, as we're collecting the data, is lining up with what we understand from the census, ACS, the demographics of your community look like, right? So we're aligning those closely. And the things we pay the most attention to are age, gender, and ethnicity, to make sure that those are lining up the way they should.
Okay, and then the various questions and the categories, did you, are those standard questions that you provide to all of your city clients, or did they arise as a discussion with staff in terms of these are the areas that we want to measure? How did we get those questions?
It's a little of both. So I always start this process by doing a lot of listening, right, to understand what is it that the city is interested in learning from residents, because we have a limited amount of time here, right? We have about 15 minutes worth of people's patience to ask questions, and so we have to prioritize. So I like to do a lot of listening first, but then having done this for so many cities, I'll often then sprinkle in some suggestions for, okay, if we're gonna go here, we should probably tack on a couple more questions because it gives you a better, well-rounded view. So it's not like you think about the shopping and dining. We dug in on shopping and dining, and I suggested some of those open-end questions behind it because it felt like it's one thing to know that they have an interest in more dining, okay. It'd be good to know, well, specifically what it is that you're looking for, right? So it is a big back and forth. And sort of collaborative approach to the design of the study.
And then my final question is, you've mentioned that, the results or the scores are solid, they're good. Is that in relation to other cities with our similar population levels and education levels and income levels? Is that comparable?
I mean, I'm saying this sort of globally in the cities that do this type of work, that your numbers are solid. I'm not sort of saying, okay, I'm comparing Diamond Bar to, say, Cypress, or Diamond Bar to San Marino or something like that. I'm thinking about it more globally.
Great, thank you so much.
When you do this kind of a survey, when you sample the resident, can there be a bias that only the people who are happy with the city return the answer, and the people who are not satisfied with it, with the city service, they don't want the answer?
I would actually say what happens, the short answer is no. The longer answer is, if you aren't careful about how you structure your sampling design, what tends to happen, and you tip your hand too much about what the survey is about and everything else, what tends to happen is you pull from the extremes. The people who are super happy and want to sort of heap praise on the city are likely to jump in. The people who have an axe to grind, they're not happy, right? And they want to get this off their chest are more likely to jump in. And then the folks in the middle who aren't as passionate about their opinions are less likely to jump in. So we're careful about how we structure our sample to avoid that. I had a great example. I was working with a department in San Jose one time. Actually, no, this one was San Diego. And when they had this take-home survey thing, and they had binders of them, right? So people who could take one off the counter and fill it out. And when you pull, and they're binders of them, and so I was like, they're like, this could be useful as a starting point. And so as I would flip through the binder, it would be, I love you, I hate you. I love you, I hate you, right? It would be one extreme or the other. It was never just, hey, you did a good, solid job, right? And so it was always the people who were either angry or happy enough to take the time to fill it out that would jump in. And yet when we did our survey for them using our method, you've got a much better distribution of the sort of general population. What you found is those extremes weren't that common, and that we got to actually talk to customers who, by reaching out to them and sort of inviting them to take this survey, you pick up a lot of people from the middle.
Thank you. One more question.
One more question. Maybe it's just to flesh it out a little bit. I appreciate what Mayor Pro Tem Liu asked relative to the number of 640 versus the number you gave us, 44,000. Can you, for people like me and your dad, can you make that make sense and extrapolate what that means in terms of what you're doing in terms of Nielsen ratings? Those are probably long gone because you talked earlier about the myriad number of sources, but how many years ago was it that Nielsen meant a lot? And so how does this relate to that?
So, and again, the really neat thing about doing these surveys is sample size matters to a point, right? But ultimately, it's how you choose your sample that is key to being able to extrapolate within a certain margin of error. And I wish I had the graphic. I don't have it here, but there's the sample size, the relationship between sample size and margin of error is not a line, it's a curve. And what happens is, if you go back 10 years to when all these surveys were done by telephone, you would wind up seeing a lot of surveys, published surveys, this is in the New York Times, or this is in the LA Times, or the city satisfaction survey of a particular city. The sample size chosen was 400. And you'd see it again and again and again. Well, the reason for that is in this curve that marks the relationship between margin of error on one side and sample size on the other, 400 marks that point where you can meet the academic standard for statistical reliability, meaning you can be 95% confident. I've got it here, yeah, where the results, I just can't show it on the screen, but oh, from here? You guys are fancy.
That's how we keep them happy.
Yeah. So, okay, so let me scoot it up a little bit. There you go.
Is that close enough?
Yeah, I think so. So what you see on this graphic is up the left side is the margin of error. What down here is 0, this is 2%, this is 4%, 6%, et cetera. Across the bottom here is your sample size. It starts at 0, it goes out to 1,000. So you can see that this curve is such that once you get beyond about 400 interviews, the margin of error starts to flatten out a lot, right? That as you're adding additional sample, you're not actually reducing your margin of error by that much. And so, if you double your sample, say from 400 to 800 interviews, you've doubled your data collection costs, and yet you've only improved your margin of error by about 1%. So in our case, which is why when I recommended at the start of the study 500, is because that's a nice point where you're going to be able to hit your margin of error of about a little more than plus or minus 4% at the 95% confidence interval, but you're not breaking the bank on data collection. We walked back in with 640, so you're getting the benefit of that. But you can see even from going from 500 to 640, it improved by less than 0.5%, right? So that's why we don't try and do surveys with 20,000 completes, right? It's just horribly expensive, and in the end, you aren't improving your statistical reliability by that much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one question. So on the demographic of the respondents, the 600 or so people that responded, do they generally reflect the demographic Diamond Bar? We're 43 years old, 3.2 household size, 64% API. Does that generally reflect?
Yeah, on the dimensions, I know because we always stare at this when we're doing our surveys at the end. Our age profile among adults, right, is very close, within a couple percent, within categories of what we have. The Census ACS says that you have. When you look at it by ethnicity, for example, we have about 15% Caucasian white, 21% Latino Hispanic. 4% African American. You have 58% who are Asian, because that's how it's obviously a collection of different subgroups, but 58% Asian, and then a couple sprinkling of Native American, Pacific Islander. So, and if you look at the census among your adult population, it lines up very closely.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you so much for the survey. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Have a great night and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to 2.2 for a strategic plan Q1 update. Mr. Fox?
Ryan McLean is going to make this presentation as well.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. As you know, the City Council recently adopted the 2024 to 2027 strategic plan. It has 3 key goals: the open, engaged, and responsive government, of which we saw a good example just in the presentation before; safe, sustainable, and healthy community; and responsible stewardship of public resources. And over the next few slides, I'm going to share some project and service updates that move us forward in accomplishing those goals.
Almost.
There we go. So a few examples here. Our cross-departmental teams are working on the 18-month process to implement the Enterprise Land Management System, and this is a system that's going to streamline our operations and improve our customer experience for our services in the planning, building, and engineering divisions. We've also made progress in the implementation of the DocuSign digital signature system. This is another piece of technology that's going to enhance operations and make the contract management process more efficient. And we've continued work on the town center specific plan, including work on environmental documents to bring a realistic plan for a future downtown Diamond Bar to a reality. Continuing, our city's efforts to implement action plan items in the recently approved housing element are well underway, including code amendments for supportive and low-income housing, among other items. The mayor also delivered the annual State of the City address in October, and that was well attended. And then finally, a few metrics that underscore some of the progress we've made. These include a 6.33-day average public records response time, which beats our target of 7 days, and a whopping total of 959 invoices paid through our accounts payable work in the finance department. We recently completed and opened the second and final phase of the Canyon Loop Trail project, including 3 new shade structures, trail markers, and interpretive signage throughout the trail. The city was awarded the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the annual financial report for the 28th straight year. Quite a run. And then finally, the City Council's Human Capital Investment Program recommendations for the current year are in progress. This includes a series of reclassifications and recruitments for new positions, all of which are designed to enhance our capacity to provide service and address future succession planning needs. Cities also launched new and improved Wi-Fi networks at city facilities to service the public. On the public safety front, of course, the City Council is aware that we've entered into an agreement to deploy 50 automated license plate reader cameras across the city. Late this summer, the Parks Department launched a new swim lesson program at Diamond Bar High School. I think that we only had about a month of operation once our agreement was in place, and we still had 154 students take part in that. City's investments continue to take advantage of a positive interest rate environment, and we've generated over $640,000 in revenue during the quarter. And the city's efforts to raise its voice on a regional scale is demonstrated through our partnerships with entities like the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments, Contract Cities Association, and Cal Cities, and each of these partnerships have direct impacts in the progress we've made in things like the 5760 confluence and some of our homeless response efforts as well. So this is a very, very brief overview of the many items that have progressed during the quarter that relate to the council's strategic plan, which clearly identifies the council's priorities and gives the staff a clear roadmap to provide services, offer programs, and address the issues of the community. And I'd also encourage everyone to check out the full update, which is available as a document on the city's website, to learn more about the plan and read a little bit more about each of these items and more. And with that, I'd wrap up my presentation and answer any questions the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? No, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, City Manager Fox, are there any additional reports?
And no additional reports this evening?
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to public comments. Public comments, the time reserved on each regular meeting agenda to provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the city council on consent calendar items or other matters of interest not on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Although the city council values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, members of the city council or staff may only briefly respond to public comments if necessary, but no extended discussion or action on such matters may take place. There is a 5-minute maximum time limit when addressing the city council. At this time, we'll call up speakers who have submitted a speaker card. Then our city clerk Santana will ask for callers on the line if they wish to speak as well. So I do have a few cards, and when you hear a name, please come up. Let's start with Cynthia Yu.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, city staff, and members of the audience. My name is Cynthia Yu from the Member Library. We have a series of programs to celebrate winter and holiday season. On December 6th at 4 p.m., please join us to learn how to use 3D printing pens to create a holiday ornament, snowflake, or make your own 3D winter art. The program is for teens ages 13 to 17. On December 7th at 4 p.m., Create Plate will teach kids the fundamentals of cooking with nutritional component. Kids will learn how to use measuring tools, cooking equipment, and how to read recipe to create their own meals or help prepare holiday dishes. This program is for ages 5 to 12 with parent or caregiver, and this program is sponsored by the Member Friends of the Library. On December 13th at 11, please join us to make your very own wall ball coaster to brighten up your winter and add some holiday color to your home. This program is for adults. The library will be closed on November 23rd and 24th in observance of Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all who celebrate. We will reopen Saturday, November 25th at 10 a.m. We are always open online. Please visit lacountylibrary.org to get ebooks, audiobooks, movies, music, and more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, may we have Imtiaz Basre please come up? Hi. Welcome.
I hope the audio is okay now. I'm here again with a very heavy heart overall. I'm here mainly to follow through with the proceedings of the previous meeting. And since scripture was quoted in the previous meeting, I would like to begin with a prayer from the scripture. And this is from Psalm 10, verses 17 through 18. O Lord, you have heard the desire of the humble. You will strengthen their hearts. You will incline your ear to vindicate the orphan and the oppressed, so that man who is of the earth will no longer cause terror. I want to further qualify this, that my familiarity with Christianity. In Muslim religion, in our holy book, Jesus Christ has been mentioned 97 times, and we revere him as a holy prophet, number one. Also, for 11 years of my primary education, I was in a Christian school. We had about 1/3 Christians. The other third were probably Muslims, and the other third were Hindus. We prayed 3 times a day, Christian prayers. And we had no qualms about it, and it was voluntary on our part. For 11 years, I had we never had any interreligious issues. That was the old times, perhaps. Moving along, sorry. My concern is this, that we have this very narrow interpretation or misinterpretation of religious teachings. Sorry, my machine is, we have very narrow interpretations, misinterpretations of religious teachings, and which makes us blind to humanitarian issues, really. And ISIS is one example. We went through such a horrible episode with them, the 9/11 and so on. It was all because of misinterpretation of religious ideas. Then there are many other similar situations that are very prevalent in our world in current times, all over the world, in multiple places. There are about, conservative estimate, there are 500 people, 500 Muslims living in the city of Diamond Bar, and this is a conservative estimate. And I'm here mainly to express my concern about what Mr. Tai said towards the end of the last meeting. So many Muslims addressed the council and expressing their anguish about the happenings in the state of Palestine. And the general theme of their narrative was representative of the sentiments of all these Muslims who reside in Diamond Bar. Mr. Tai, Muslims have supported you through your city political career since 2005. We have attended your fundraisers. You have come to our place of worship. I was the first one to thank you last time when I spoke by name. You were the first one, and I really, truly appreciate, because you have done tremendous service to the city for so many years, not just as a council person, but also as a city planning commission and so on, We are very hurt, and we are feeling very betrayed by your remarks last time, in the last meeting.
Mr. Batre, can you try to wrap up? Your time's up.
Sure. Oops, sorry. I didn't realize. You're certainly entitled to your views, but there were 2 issues very quickly. One was the breach of U.S. Constitution, the First Amendment, and second, you heard sentiments of so many of us here in the community, your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Can we have Douglas Barcone please join us? Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Dr. Douglas Barcone. I'm a resident of Diamond Bar for, I think, 36 years right now. And this was a very timely meeting to attend, I just found out, because I was one of the 640 that were surveyed. And I don't recall what my answers were on that survey. They sound very familiar as part of the majority, I believe. So I would like to know whether it's possible to ever get a response back to the 640 people via their email to give them feedback or the results of their survey. I know it's supposed to be private and blinded and so forth. There may be a way that they can perhaps put a number on it or something like that, or just send them out to the people that were surveyed. So that would be nice to have the results so I can compare my results with everybody else. And then beyond that, I'm going to go back to a response to the public comments from the last meeting. And I'm going to keep this as nice and I guess sterile as possible. But the war between Israel and the Gaza Strip is actually a war between the Hamas terrorist organization and Israel in response to the unprovoked attack by Hamas warriors against Israelis and citizens of other countries in Israel. It is not a military action directed at the Palestinians. Unfortunately, Hamas has embedded itself within the Palestinians and is using them as shields. Israel will stop its response when it is secure in the knowledge that Hamas is no longer a viable threat to her existence. Anti-Semitism is intolerable worldwide, whether it's here in Diamond Bar or anywhere else within the world. Now, at the last meeting, there were complaints about the military banners hanging from the light poles in the city and asking that they be removed. I urge the City Council to not remove those armed forces banners because they are in recognition of residents serving our country and protecting democracy and the U.S. Constitution. And then finally, the city should not entangle itself with world politics. And thank you, and good night.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Alan Wilson. Please come up. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Alan Wilson. I have lived in Diamond for 27 years. I'm here to respond to the last City Council meeting and public comments. And I'm just horrified at hearing the public comments. They're within their right to say what they want to say. We understand what happened October 7th. It was unprovoked aggression by the Hamas attacking Israel, which is a free state recognized established in 1948. We need to look back and understand history, what happened to October 7th. Let's go way back. The Palestinian leader met with Adolf Hitler on November 28, 1941, just 8 days before Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. He asked for Hitler to wipe out the Jewish population. Hitler said that, sure, not a problem, because you have enough Aryan stock in your DNA. Then they tried to develop a two-state solution in 1948. The Palestinians didn't want it. They tried that in 1967 with the Yom War, two-state solution. They didn't want it. In 2000, President Bill Clinton tried to have Yasser Arafat, the PLO, to have a two-state solution. They said no. In 2005, Israel gave the Palestinians on a silver platter Gaza Strip. Sure, you could have it. What did Israel get? An attack from Hamas, a terrorist state that recognized as a terrorist state in every Western democracy in the world. And for hearing the Palestinian protest in the United States, you can have all the protests you want, but you don't protest a free country. And I'm just horrified with the anti-Semitism going on in the United States and around the world. It just horrifies me. I want people to read the diary of Anne Frank. It will astonish you what she went through living in an attic for 2 years. And I don't understand for the life of me, why do people have to have anti-Semitism just because you're a Jew? I just don't understand it. The next thing, you're going to hate someone that they're black, they're Asian, or they're deaf. We have enough hatred. I want this City Council to adopt a resolution, what happened at Chino Hill, to adopt a resolution anti-hate. stop anti-hate, and that would send a message throughout the city. It terrified me to hear the action, people protesting about free Palestine. We did not hear one word about the free hostages. We did not hear the hostages being held in captivity by the Hamas terrorists. Tonight, the Israeli cabinet just approved a 4-day ceasefire that will exchange 50 prisoners, 50 terror hostages held by Hamas in exchange for the Palestinian terrorists. Progress is happening. But I have to say this, when you attack a free country, Israel will finish the job. You understand, Hamas are hiding in the hospitals, in the schools, they're hiding in the bunkers. And you know what? If Israel has to get rid of them, we need to get rid of them. We need to understand it. We need to realize this. You know, I'm not, in my lifetime, there are enough wars since I was born, but I would like to see for the rest of the 21st century as a century of peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else in the audience that would like to address the City Council at this time? If not, we'll go to the phone. City Clerk Santana, were there any public comments email received prior?
Thank you, Mayor. There were no emails submitted for public comment, and if any member of the public joining this meeting via teleconference would like to address the City Council, please click on the raised hand icon in your GoToWebinar program. I will unmute callers one at a time, and there are no hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Last call for public comments. Anybody? Okay. Seeing none, we'll now move on. Okay, let's go to item 4 on tonight's agenda, schedule of future events. Mr. Fox?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On the schedule of events, city offices will be closed on Thursday, the 23rd, and Friday, the 24th, in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. Coffee with the Cop will be held on Saturday morning, November 25th, from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. at Starbucks at the corner of Golden Springs and Brea Canyon. The November 23rd Parks and Recreation Commission meeting has been canceled, and the November 28th Planning Commission meeting has also been canceled. On Sunday, December 3rd, the city and the Diamond Bar Community Foundation will be hosting the Windmill Lighting event from 5 to 6 p.m. in the Walmart Market parking lot at the corner of Grand and Diamond Bar Boulevard. And our next City Council meeting will be held on Tuesday, December 5th, starting at 6:30 here in the AQMD auditorium.
Thank you. Let's now move on to consent calendar. Mr. Fox?
On the consent calendar this evening, you have the approval of the November 7th meeting minutes, ratification of the check register dated November 1st through November 14th, approval of the treasurer's statement for October, adoption of Resolution 2023-33, amending the city's personnel rules and regulations related to sick time for part-time employees consistent with new state law, adoption of Resolution 2023-34, amending the compensation plan for part-time employees in response to increases with the minimum wage consistent with state law, approval of the automated license plate reader use and deployment policy, approval of a 5-year maintenance and services agreement with Helix Environmental Planning for the habitat mitigation monitoring program related to the Canyon Loop Trail project, including an appropriation from the general fund, approval of a public works agreement with Train US for the replacement of the DBC HVAC system, including adoption of Resolution 2023-35, authorizing Train US as a sole source vendor for the project, an additional appropriation from the general fund, and a determination that the project is categorically exempt Class 1 from the California Environmental Quality Act, and approval of amendment, the First Amendment to a professional services agreement with M&S Engineering for design revisions to the Diamond Bar Boulevard Complete Streets project, including an appropriation from the general fund and a determination that the design services is not subject to review under the California Environmental Quality Act. And that concludes the consent calendar for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Would anyone like to pull any items for discussion?
Mayor, I'd like to pull number 5.8, please.
5.8?
5.8, and with that, I'll make a motion to approve the remainder.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Please take the roll.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Tang?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lu?
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. So we'll go back to Councilmember Lowe for 5.8.
Thank you. On item number 5.8, I noticed that we're asking for an additional appropriation from the general fund for the AC replacement over at the Diamond Bar Center. How come the original estimate was so off?
I'll try to take a high-level stab at that. The Diamond Bar Center actually turns out to be a very complex roof system. The existing units are very specialized, and there's actually 2 of them on the building. Our hope was, based upon our experience with City Hall, that we'd be able to pick those up and put new ones down. Unfortunately, that did not work out quite as planned. We did earmark some of the ARPA funds for this system to improve the air quality at the Diamond Bar Center. Cost, I think, increases have gone up a little bit, obviously, since COVID, and it's just a more complex, custom-built system than we anticipated. And I don't know if Public Works Director David Liu wants to add anything or clarify anything.
Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, I think on top of that is just that with the, basically this is a specialized, a very niche construction work that needs to be done. The existing structure, especially if you're looking at the roofing structure, it's basically fixed in that the whole center, when it was designed and built, it was specifically built around these very expensive equipments. And on top of that, I think at the end of the day, we're seeing rising costs in all areas. Just this morning, when I was looking at the highway construction costs, the Federal Highway Administration said, comparing the fourth quarter of 2020 to first quarter 2023 of this year, the cost ballooned up to 54%. I mean, that's no surprise to us, but I think it's very indicative that everything is gone up very significantly. And also in the audience, we have our maintenance supervisor, Mr. Jason Williams. He specifically have looked at every single thing that's required for this upgrades or replacement work. And at the end of the day, Trane is the only one that can do this unique services. So I think to a certain extent, from their business point of view, is that you're stuck with us, and this is the way it's going to be.
I guess that was my impression when I was reading the report. It seems like, yeah, you guys, we, Trane, are the only people that can fix or do repair what you have or what you need. Do we know that going in, that we would be stuck with Trane? I mean, looks like a long-term marriage with Trane. Did we know that going in?
I believe so. I think as one of the lessons learned, when we were designing for the HVAC at the DBC Center, I think there's a lot of factors considered. Some of you may remember one of the things that we want to be in certain controlling position is that we want to manage the construction costs, starting from a vacant site to the structure, to the crown jewel that we have today. A lot of factors went in, and one of the things that ended up saving the cities some money during the construction of that Diamond Bar Center facility was the unique custom-made system, in this case the HVAC system, that's fit exactly based on the designer's desire to save us some money. But
now we pay for
20
it.
years later, I think if lessons learned here. I mean, at one point or another, I think it's also important to understand there's a service life for everything. And 20 years later, the HVAC needs to be replaced, but nobody thought about the rising cost and the opportunity to the lack of opportunity to solicit different design, different system.
So my final question is, how much of the original Trane system are we retaining, and how much of it is new Trane equipment?
I'll answer this, but Mr. Williams, if you can answer that, my understanding is we're completely replacing the system.
Well, if we're completely replacing the system, why don't we completely replace it and go out to bid?
Do you mind it? Go ahead. To clarify things a little bit, so there's 9 package units on site on the Diamond Bar Center, one 90-ton air handler, and a split system. So the 9 package units that are up there are currently train package units. Those units are being replaced like for like. If we were to go with a unit other than a train unit, we would have to do structural and roof work along with that because curbs are designed specifically for units. Excuse me. Where the majority of your cost is associated with this project is with the 90-ton package unit. The 90-ton package unit was originally done as a custom build when the building was built. What that does to us now is puts us in a position where a standard air handler, such as what you would see on City Hall, will not fit inside the space and work with the existing ductwork and structural members on the building. So in order to go through that process, you'd probably be looking at doubling the costs of the project and putting in shutdown times for the facility in order to address the structural needs and bring everything up to new standard codes. So although it is a very expensive project, where we're at right now with what we have to work with from the original design, this is the cleanest and most efficient way to not only get the air conditioners replaced and get us another 20+ years worth of operation, but to also minimize the amount of downtime to the Diamond Bar Center. As of right now, we're looking at a downtime of approximately 5 days with no disruption of weekend activities. So through all these processes is really how we got here and trying to make sure that we did the best, not only looking at the financial side, but the operational side of the city and making sure at the end of the day we have a system that's going to be able to suit the needs for the next 20 years. Where we sit right now, the original design unfortunately never fully suited the needs of like the ballroom, which that unit right there is about 50% of the cost for the entire project.
Great, thank you. So what you're saying is on balance, even with what we have to replace, it will cost us even more to redo the whole thing. I get
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I don't. Anyone else has a question? If not, we have a motion.
I have a
Oh,
question.
yeah.
So, assuming we put, well, we got with this new system that we put on, how long would it last?
You typically look at average lifespan is 20 years on a piece of equipment such as this. With good maintenance, you can get a little more out of it. I would anticipate you're looking at going through this process again somewhere around that 20-year mark.
Okay, thanks.
He'll still be around. Along with this guy.
Wow.
All right, Mayor, well, I'm going to make a motion to approve item number 5.8.
I'll second that even though I won't be around.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Please take the roll.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Tang?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lu?
Yes.
Mayor Cho?
Yes, thank you. Motion carries. We'll now move, and that concludes the consent calendar. Thank you, colleagues. We'll now move on to item 6, public hearings. We have none tonight. We'll move on to item 7 for council consideration. 7.1 is the Fourth Amendment to City Manager Employment Agreement. I believe our City Attorney Sandoval will provide the report.
Yes, Mayor. Members of the City Council, before you is a short amendment to the City Manager's Agreement. It only does one thing. It provides a $5,000 contribution towards the city's 457 plan on behalf of the City Manager. That's equivalent to 1 week worth of the City Manager's salary, and that is all the agreement is doing. And this can be on consent calendar because the Brown Act requires that there be an oral report. That is the extent of the report, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I believe we need to ask for public comment on this item, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so before we go to questions, can we take any public comments?
Mayor, there were no emails submitted for this item, and there's no one on the line at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll go and close public comments. Any council comments or discussion? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt this Fourth Amendment for the city manager's employment agreement.
I will second, Mayor.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. Please take the roll.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Lowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Tang?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lu?
Yes.
Mayor Chow?
Yes, thank you. All right, motion carries 5-0. We'll now move on to item 7.2. It's appointment to the Park and Recreation Commission to a full unexpired term. This is from Councilmember Tai or City Manager? Councilmember Tai, you want to say a few words since it's your appointment?
Mayor and council, this item would ratify Councilmember Tai's appointment of Brian Worthington to the Parks and Recreation Commission that was created due to a vacancy. And I defer to Councilmember Tai if he'd like to say a few remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I looked at the available applications and am proud to recommend Brian Worthington as the newest member of the Parks and Recreation Commission, although if you listen to the agenda, you don't have a meeting next week. So Brian has a great deal of experience in the city of Diamond Bar, was very instrumental in the general plan, and I know that I'm very confident that he will do a terrific job. So I'd like the council support to ratify Brian Worthington to the Parks and Recreation Commission.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, can we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and there were no public comments emailed for this item, and no one is on the line. Councilmember Lowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Tang?
Yes.
Councilmember Tai?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lu?
Yes.
Mayor Chow?
Yes, thank you. Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. Welcome to the team. All right, we'll now move on to item 8 for council subcommittee reports. We'll start on my left with Councilmember Tai.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to congratulate the Kiwanis Club of not only Rowland Heights, but Diamond Bar as well for 60 years of activity in the area and doing good things for people. And it always reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that Henry Ford said, "Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success." And the Kiwanis Club has shown that they know a thing or two about success by working together. So congratulations to that whole group. On November 8th, it was an honor to recognize members of our military. We've been doing that for a long time now, and it's always appreciated, not only by them, but by those that attend and get to hear the Darden group just do a tremendous job on the music for the military. Later that same day, we went as a group and received a check from Assemblywoman Calderon, presented a check for improvements at Heritage Park. It's not everything to get us there, but every little bit helps, and we greatly appreciate her taking the time to do that and finding the resources for it in Sacramento. With that, I will say have a very, very blessed and enjoyable Thanksgiving with family and friends. Good night, and God bless you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tang?
Thanksgiving is coming, so I'm taking this opportunity to be thankful for the city of Diamond Bar, for the people, to put me in this position to serve the people. And I also thank my council colleagues and the mayors for the last year also to give me invaluable suggestions, supports for me to navigate this job, and also thank all the help from the city staff. Thank you very much. And I wish everybody has a very peaceful, joyful Thanksgiving holidays. Good night.
Thank you. Councilmember Lowe, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, congratulations, Mr. Brian Worthington. You're in the audience. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for agreeing to serve on our Parks and Recreation Commission. I think you'll have a great time. I served on that besides City Council, it's the best job ever. So congratulations and welcome to the team. Hope to see you at the concerts and all the various activities that are coming up. And thank you on item number 7.1. Thank you to our city manager, Mr. Fox. Thank you for your dedicated and awesome service to our city. As presented in item number, our survey report, our residents are very satisfied with how the city is run with a, 3.65 margin of error, which is hardly any. So congratulations on a really great report, and thank you again for your dedicated work to our city. I have some photos to show everybody. This is my regular update about what is happening with the golf course. So if this photo looks familiar, this is the golf course, of course, and you can see that the netting is up and the grass is really growing nicely, and there's some planting. So this is the sodding activity is well underway. This was maybe about 3 weeks ago, maybe even 4 weeks ago. So by now you would have seen additional growth. So very excited. Things are moving right along. This is, you know how you have pictures like watching the paint dry? Well, this is watching the grass grow. So that's this photo here. So we can all watch the grass grow, and as you go by, the county wants to see it grow 6 inches. So we'll see whether or not it actually gets us up that high. And the plan is once the sod is thick enough to withstand all the cleats and the divots and everything else, then we can think about reopening the golf course. So very excited about that. Estimated opening date probably first quarter 2024. So it's coming. Now, isn't this exciting? This, you don't really see it except from this high view, but this is all of the construction work that is happening on the side of the golf course by the freeway. And our contractors have thoughtfully labeled what the grading is about. So you've got Grand Avenue eastbound on-ramp, and then you've got the Grand Avenue eastbound off-ramp. So what the contractors have to do is they have to build what we're going to use. Then we move to this thing that they build. Then they're going to build the permanent thing, and then we're going to move into the permanent thing. So it's a really complicated process, and so we're very excited that this is well on the way. And this scene is from Golden Springs, and the little arrow is an explanation of what they're doing for this overpass. You can see that they're shoring up the bridge. The bridge was in the news big time this past week. Well, this is our own bridge, and we're going to make sure that we don't have those issues like in Los Angeles. So this is the work that our contractors are doing in shoring up that off-ramp. And that's on the side of the Golden Springs Drive. And this is yet another view of that. And then this is the Confluence Grand Avenue off-ramp and the 60 off-ramp of the Grand Avenue. So this is you're going to be coming toward the picture where you're coming eastbound on 60 freeway, and you're going to be able to exit on Grand Avenue without having to cross over some two lanes of very, very fast-moving traffic. So this is one thing that we're really looking forward to repairing because it's so unsafe now. So we expect that to be very, very helpful in terms of our safety as well as to relieve our traffic congestion. And so that's the update. One more. And yet more construction work. The crew is just really doing a lot of work on this part of the freeway, so we're very excited that they're really moving things right along. Councilmember Tai talked about the $250,000 check from Assemblywoman Lisa Calderon, and here's the big check that she presented to us last week. So we're very grateful for our Assemblywoman for her efforts, and as Councilmember Tai said, it's not quite nearly enough, but we'll take it, and we hope to repair the bathrooms and what else are we doing there? We're doing the bathrooms, and we're doing we're fixing the building, right?
We're doing the playground replacements, some ADA improvements to the parking lot and sidewalk, as well as some interior restrooms, taking down the old restrooms, and some modest tenant improvements in the inside to kind of give it a refresh.
Okay, well, so this is a little bit of help, and so we'll take it, and so we will hopefully apply for additional grants so that we can do this project. So again, thank you very much to our Assemblywoman for their work. Thank you to the staff for applying for the grants, and to the council for showing up because we do like to get the checks, don't we, folks? Okay, what else we got? This is the time of year that lots of toy drives are happening all around town. So if you're catching some Black Friday sales or you're walking around, the Women's Club is collecting toys in their Making Spirits Bright campaign, and these toys go to military families at 29 Palms. So if you know anybody from the Women's Club and you want to give them the toy, call them up and they'll pick it up. If you don't know anybody else, well, you know me, I'm a member of the Women's Club. Call me and I'll come by and pick it up or meet you somewhere, and we'll make sure that these toys get delivered. Also, at the windmill lighting ceremony, which was announced earlier, that's December 3rd, the Diamond Bar Walnut Sheriff's Station is conducting a toy drive at the Walmart Center, and their toy drive is called Pack a Patrol Car. So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Captain, there's a patrol car, and the whole idea is to stuff it with toys, correct? All right, so that is happening from 1 to 6 p.m. on December the 3rd. So if you're out, again, lots of extra toys. What they would like is new toys unwrapped for kids. And then a final note is that as we head into the holiday season, I really hate to mention this, but I need to, because scammers are always at work in our city, but they're working extra hard during the holiday time. So I just want to remind everybody to not let your guard down. If you are receiving a phone call from someone you don't know, and they say they're from law enforcement, they say they're from the IRS, they're from Social Security, they're from the government agency, even from the city of Diamond Bar, and they start asking you, hey, what's your telephone number? What's your Social Security number? Where's your bank? Do not give that information, because these are scammers and they will steal your money. Just be aware. And sometimes somebody might call you pretending to be a delivery person. Hey, you didn't get your delivery. Can I get your address so that I can redo it again? Oh no, do not give that information, because these are also scammers. If someone is calling you and asking you, would you send me some gift cards? Or, hey, there's a QR code. Would you send the money to that QR code? Or would you send some cryptocurrency? Do not do that, because if you do that, you will lose your money. We will never trace it, and that would not be good for you. So anyways, please just really be aware. Scammers are working overtime, and share that information with your friends, your neighbors, people that don't get out much, because those are our most vulnerable victims. And remember, you can always hang up the phone when they call you. All right. To everyone in our community, I just wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. We're so grateful to live in this city, to live in this great nation, and we're just so blessed. With that, good night.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, our colleagues. As we approach Thanksgiving, I am very thankful and grateful for our city staff, and you take service with a smile to another level. Thank you so much. We hear that from the community, and also being proactive and really serving our community. And also like to thank our community coming together for Thanksgiving and supporting each other. That goes from students from middle schools and elementary schools collecting food, our businesses, residents in Diamond Bar collecting food and doing the driveways, and also distributing the turkeys and with some trimmings and canned foods to our less fortunate. Have a really enjoyable full Thanksgiving, and then on community organizations bringing everyone together and celebrating Friendsgiving. So with that, I would like to wish everyone have a very great Thanksgiving with family and friends, and we're very grateful for communities that are hosting Friendsgiving. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the windmill lighting. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to echo some of the comments from my colleagues. I want to thank our staff for a job well done. I can't believe it's been a year since I had the honor of a lifetime to serve as a mayor. I think this is my last meeting as the mayor for now. I want to thank my colleagues for the opportunity to serve. I want to thank my family, my wife, and my kids for putting up with my schedule this past year. But more importantly, I want to thank the people of Diamond Bar for this really honor and opportunity of a lifetime to serve. With that, I'll say good night, and time is now 8:10. We'll go and adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.
I'm going to my brother. So he